Chosen one, anchor your spirit to every word I am about to say right now. That quiet unraveling you have been feeling, the one you cannot explain to anyone around you, stop running from it. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He sees the convergence point. He sees what is about to click into place. And if he can keep you distracted by confusion just long enough, he thinks he can delay your arrival. He is wrong, because it is all coming together. Not eventually, not someday. Now, this season, this week, the pieces you thought you lost, the doors you thought closed forever, the relationships you thought were ruined, the opportunities you believed you forfeited through your own mistakes, they are being gathered, they are being restored, they are being aligned at a speed that is going to leave you breathless. But here is what you need to hear first. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not surface this for you. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment scheduled before the foundations of this earth were ever laid. You are standing at a convergence point, the exact moment where everything you have been carrying finally begins to make sense. Stay until the very last word, because in the next few minutes I am going to hand you the spiritual audit that reveals exactly where your alignment already began without you realizing it. I am going to expose the specific lie the enemy planted in your mind to make you believe the pieces are still scattered. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this season of gathering permanently shut. Do not leave. Your future self, the one who is already living inside everything you have been praying for, is begging you to stay seated. Because if you walk away now, you walk away seconds before the verdict is read in your favor. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere has not been quiet. It has been suspended, like everything around you is holding its breath. Maybe you have been moving through your days this week on autopilot, going through every motion, checking every box, but carrying this low hum of anxiety in your chest that no amount of distraction can silence. Maybe you woke up at 3 in the morning and just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling like you were right on the edge of something massive, but terrified it was going to fall apart before it arrived. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe you caught yourself standing in the middle of a room this week, completely still, feeling the weight of everything unfinished pressing down on your shoulders, wondering if you had already missed your moment. You feel suspended. Not stuck, but suspended. Like you are floating in the space between the life you have been living and the life you were created for. And in that suspended place, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen to your own thoughts right now, and you will hear it. He has been telling you that the reason nothing has fully materialized yet is because something in you is still broken. He has been replaying a specific moment in your memory. Maybe that moment earlier this week when you chose isolation instead of faith, when you scrolled through your phone instead of praying, when you almost surrendered the vision because the silence felt like rejection. He has been narrating that moment on a loop and telling you that because of it, the alignment has been disrupted, that you got close, but you disqualified yourself at the finish line. That is a deception engineered specifically for this moment in your life. Because here is what the scripture actually says. Philippians 1:6 declares, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." Hear that. He who began it will carry it to completion, not you. Not your consistency, not your performance. The one who started the work inside you is the same one finishing it. The moment you think you disrupted was not a disruption, it was a development. The silence you interpreted as absence was actually preparation. God does not abandon unfinished symphonies. He conducts them. You are not scattered, you are being gathered. The heaviness you have been carrying this week is not the weight of failure. It is the weight of convergence. It is what it feels like when 1,000 invisible threads are being pulled taut at the exact same moment, every loose end being drawn toward a single point of completion. You thought you were falling behind, but you were being positioned. That was not weakness. That was the final step of alignment. Hit the like button if this message reached you at the exact moment you needed it. Drop a comment below. What is one area of your life right now where you're waiting for the pieces to finally come together? And what would it feel like if they all clicked into place this week? Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper, far beyond the surface stirrings, because what I just handed you is merely the trailhead, the opening chord to a symphony of revelation God yearns to unpack in this precise, pivotal moment. He desires to peel back the layers of misunderstanding, to illuminate the hidden mechanics of His divine orchestration, and to reframe every perplexing twist and turn you've encountered. Here is what most people, even those with deeply spiritual hearts, fundamentally misunderstand about the season of gathering. They mistakenly anticipate that this convergence, this divine synthesis of purpose and provision, will manifest as an era of pristine clarity, a landscape bathed in an unwavering golden light. They imagine it looking like a proliferation of open doors, effortlessly swinging wide, revealing smooth roads stretching unimpeded into the horizon, accompanied by undeniable signs, stark and legible from a mile away, leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. They assume with a certainty that often breeds disappointment that when God is actively pulling the scattered threads of their life into a cohesive tapestry, they will distinctly feel it happening, a palpable shift in the spiritual atmosphere. They expect an overwhelming sense of peace, a calm that settles every anxious thought, and an abundance of confirmation, ringing bells of assurance that leave no stone unturned. They expect the undeniable, irrefutable sense that everything is finally, flawlessly lining up, a celestial clock striking the hour of their breakthrough. But the profound truth, the radical, paradigm-shifting truth that will forever reframe every unsettling, disorienting experience you have been navigating, is that this divine convergence, this powerful season of gathering, almost never feels the way our human minds, conditioned by the expectation of immediate ease and linear progress, have imagined it would. Instead, it often manifests as a deep interior pressure, an intense, alchemical compression designed not to crush, but to refine and consolidate. It feels like suspension, an uneasy, sometimes agonizing hovering in the liminal space between what was and what is yet to be, where the familiar ground has dissolved and the new foundations are still invisible beneath the surface. It is the unbearable, heavy quiet right before a cataclysmic shift, the profound hush that precedes an earthquake of destiny, the atmospheric tension building just before something enormous, something monumental, fundamentally alters the spiritual and circumstantial landscape. And precisely because it does not align with their preconceived notions of comfort and clarity, because it does not feel like the gentle unfolding they anticipated, most people tragically mistake this divine gathering for abandonment. They interpret the profound pressure as a sign of God's disfavor, the suspension as His forgetfulness, and the quiet as His absence, rather than His deep, unseen, and often silent work. And in that most crucial of junctures, many, out of fear or misinterpretation, unknowingly step back, retreating from the very threshold where God Himself is stepping in to unveil the next breathtaking chapter. That, my dear friend, is the first indelible truth your spirit needs to receive, to embrace with open hands and an understanding heart. The discomfort you have been sitting in, the unsettling weight that has pressed upon your soul, the profound sense of being in between, this is not a signal that something has gone wrong in the grand design of your life. It is, instead, the undeniable signature of a God who meticulously works in the unseen realms, in the depths and shadows, before He ever unveils His masterpiece in the visible, manifest world. Think of Elijah, the mighty prophet, once a beacon of unshakable faith, now crouched, broken and bereft, on the desolate mountain in 1 Kings 19. He was burned out, utterly depleted, his spirit a frayed thread, convinced his formidable assignment was utterly finished, certain in his profound loneliness that he was the only faithful one left in all of Israel. This was the man who had just stood unwavering on Mount Carmel, summoning fire from heaven in a spectacular display of divine power, publicly shaming and outlasting 450 false prophets of Baal. He had outrun chariots powered by divine strength. And yet there he was, a picture of profound despair, collapsed under the meager shade of a solitary juniper tree, crying out to God, telling the Almighty that he was done, ready for death, convinced his race was run. And what was the response of a God who sees beyond the visible act into the deepest chambers of the heart? He did not correct Elijah with a thunderous sermon on resilience or spiritual fortitude. He did not rebuke the raw, visceral exhaustion that had brought his servant to his knees. Instead, with tenderness and profound understanding, he let him sleep, allowing his weary body and soul the restorative balm of unconsciousness. He sent a divine messenger, an angel, not to lecture but to nourish, providing miraculous food and water, strengthening him for a journey he still believed he couldn't make. And then quietly, without the fanfare of a divine pronouncement, without a grand revelation, he asked one simple, penetrating question: "What are you doing here, Elijah?" This was not asked as a condemnation, not as an accusation for his perceived failure or his spiritual retreat. It was offered as a compass, a gentle recalibration, a divine invitation to look beyond his immediate despair. It was as if to whisper, "My beloved servant, this is not where your story ends. This juniper tree, this moment of utter desolation, is merely a pause, a necessary interval between profound moments. Get up, arise, because the journey that still awaits you, the grand design I have for you, is far too great for you to undertake without the fresh impartation, without the renewed strength and revelation I'm about to give you. You, in this very season, in this very week, find yourself akin to Elijah under that juniper tree. Perhaps not physically, but spiritually and emotionally, you may be depleted, questioning, worn down by the battles you've fought and the silence you've encountered. And let me assure you, with the deepest conviction of God's unchanging love, He is not disappointed in how you got there. He sees your exhaustion, He understands your weariness, and He is not judging your vulnerability. On the contrary, even as you rest or feel suspended, He is already meticulously preparing what you need for the next arduous yet glorious leg of the journey. His divine provision is not contingent upon your strength, but upon your surrender, not upon your understanding, but upon His unwavering grace. He is tending to your spirit in ways you cannot yet perceive, setting the stage, gathering the resources, and aligning the paths for the breakthrough that is just ahead. But here is where the truth cuts deeper, reaching into the very core of your being, and this is a profound layer of insight most people, unfortunately, never truly reach or comprehend. The fundamental reason Elijah collapsed under that juniper tree, the root cause of his despair, was not merely physical or emotional exhaustion, though those were undoubtedly present. It was, at its very core, a profound crisis of identity. When he cried out to God, "I am no better than my fathers," that was not a simple statement about tiredness or a comparison of his physical prowess. That was the raw, guttural cry of a man who, in his lowest, most vulnerable moment, had begun to believe that the broken, spent version of himself he saw reflected in his present circumstances was a more accurate, more truthful picture of who he was than everything God had called him to be, everything God had empowered him to do. He had, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps in sheer weariness, allowed the insidious whispers of the enemy to narrate his identity, using his worst hour, his moment of weakness and retreat, as the undeniable damning evidence of his ultimate failure. And tragically, this is precisely what has been happening to you, a quiet, corrosive work of spiritual sabotage designed to undermine the very foundation of your being. The insidious lie the enemy has been diligently planting and cultivating in your spirit this week was not just about your external circumstances, not merely about the closed doors or the unanswered prayers. Far more dangerously, it was about your intrinsic nature, your God-given essence. He has been relentlessly trying to coax you, to trick you, to subtly persuade you into accepting a diminished, truncated version of yourself as the final, immutable version of your identity. He has been highlighting your stumbles, your missteps, your moments of perceived failure, not because they hold any significant weight in God's unwavering view of you, but precisely because he knows they matter immensely to you. He is a master psychologist of the soul, acutely aware that if he can successfully maneuver you into defining yourself by your lowest moment, by your perceived weaknesses or past mistakes, you will, almost imperceptibly and unconsciously, begin to make every subsequent decision from that place of contracted self-worth. You will find yourself shrinking your prayers, whispering them tentatively, doubting their efficacy even as you utter them. You will subtly lower your expectations, telling yourself it's realistic or humble to aim for less than the audacious vision God placed within your heart. You will inevitably talk yourself out of the very things, the very divine assignments, the very open doors God has been strategically positioning and preparing you to step into. And in a cruel twist of spiritual deception, you will label this retreat, this surrender to a smaller narrative, as humility. But let me declare this truth with unwavering clarity. It is not humility. True humility is acknowledging God's greatness and your dependence on him, not diminishing his image within you. This is, in its most dangerous form, agreement with an inferior identity, a spiritual capitulation that holds you hostage from the fullness of your divine inheritance. And what is coming next in this revelation will likely surprise you, perhaps even challenge your preconceived notions, because the true antidote, the profound solution, is not what most people instinctively reach for or intellectually grasp. Most people, upon realizing they are battling identity lies, immediately resort to what feels like spiritual warfare in the form of declarations. They speak powerful scriptures over themselves, repeating them with fervent hope. They engage in affirmations, chanting positive truths about who they aspire to be. And let me be unequivocally clear, there is immense, undeniable power in that. Do not misunderstand the efficacy of God's word spoken with faith. It is a spiritual weapon of unparalleled force. But before the declaration, before the powerful pronouncement of truth, there must first be a conscious, deliberate, and radical disengagement. You have to consciously, with unwavering intention, deliberately, with every fiber of your spiritual being, and spiritually, through a profound act of the will, withdraw your active agreement from the corrosive narrative the enemy meticulously built around your lowest moments. Because here is the profound spiritual principle: a lie does not lose its devastating power the moment you merely stop intellectually believing it. Its power diminishes. It truly loses its grip. The precise moment you stop feeding it with your precious, life-giving attention. Every time you compulsively replay that moment of failure in the cinema of your mind, every time you meticulously rehearse that agonizing conversation where someone, perhaps innocently, perhaps maliciously, told you that you were too much or tragically not enough, every time you permit the memory of your mistakes, your perceived inadequacies, or your past shame to run on a continuous, tormenting loop in your consciousness, you are not simply remembering. You are, in that very act, actively renewing an agreement, signing a fresh lease with the lie, giving it continued residency in the sacred space of your inner world. And this is a critical truth. God, in his absolute sovereignty and perfect alignment, cannot fully occupy and unleash his transformative power within a space you are still partially, even subtly, surrendering to something else, to an old narrative, to a lie. This is precisely where the timeless narrative of Daniel comes alive, pulsating with immediate relevance for your present moment. When Daniel, a man of unwavering integrity and profound faith, was unjustly thrown into the gaping maw of the lion's den, the stone that sealed his fate was not merely placed over the opening. It was sealed with an authority meant to be absolute and irreversible. The king himself, with the full weight of his royal decree, pressed his signet ring deep into the wet clay, cementing the stone shut, making it an unbreachable barrier, a seal of ultimate finality. And from the outside, to every human eye peering in, it looked like the definitive end. It looked like absolute containment, a life utterly trapped, confined to a dark, inescapable tomb. It appeared to be a door that, once closed, could never be opened again. The roar of the lions echoed, a chilling testament to the doom that awaited. But what the human king sealed from the outside, God, with an infinitely greater and sovereign power, sealed from the inside. He did not seal Daniel's fate. He sealed the lions' mouths. The very instruments of destruction, the ferocious beasts that were explicitly purposed to consume Daniel, became by divine intervention the very things that couldn't touch him, rendering them utterly powerless. And when the stone was dramatically rolled away the following morning, when the anxious, guilt-ridden king ran with a desperate cry to the edge of the pit, fearing the worst, Daniel answered from the inside, his voice clear and resonant. He was not just alive, he was whole, completely unharmed, still standing amidst the humbled predators, radiating an inexplicable peace. And with profound calm, Daniel declared, "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions." The very thing that in your human perception looked like your sealed tomb, a definitive end to hope and possibility, is in the spiritual reality actually your sealed protection. What appeared to be containment, a cruel trapping within restrictive circumstances, was in fact divine preservation, an act of God's safeguarding hand. The doors that emphatically closed on you, slamming shut with a finality that brought tears to your eyes and despair to your heart, were not God abandoning you to your fate or denying your destiny. On the contrary, those were God, in his infinite wisdom and foresight, actively sealing out what was never meant for your next chapter, protecting you from detours, diversions, or dangers that would have derailed you from the true path he has ordained. He was not closing doors to your future, but rather closing them to your past, to irrelevant pathways, to things that could no longer serve his perfect plan. Stay with me. Hold fast to this thread of revelation, because what I'm about to share next is not merely an insight. It is the profound understanding that has the power to break the cycle of frustration and delay entirely, liberating you from its grip. There is a habit, a subtle, insidious, spiritual habit that has been quietly, almost imperceptibly, feeding your delay, prolonging your seasons of waiting, and holding back the full manifestation of God's promises. and it is not what most people instinctively think it is. It is not necessarily prayerlessness, though prayer indeed matters profoundly in connecting us to the divine. It is not simply faithlessness, though faith in its raw, unyielding form is undeniably essential for every step of our spiritual journey. The deeply entrenched habit that has been insidiously feeding your delay is the pervasive habit of premature interpretation. You have been habitually, and often unconsciously, assigning definitive meaning to things, to circumstances, to perceived failures, long before they are divinely finished, long before God has completed his transformative work within them. You have been reading the middle, the messy, unfinished middle of your glorious story, as if it were the definitive, conclusive ending. You have been diligently evaluating a divine process, a process that God meticulously designed to be completed, brought to a glorious culmination, as if the unfinished, in-progress, often uncomfortable version is the final, irrevocable verdict on your worth, your calling, or your destiny. To truly grasp this, think deeply about what happens to a tiny seed, carefully planted and buried deep in the fertile ground. From the outside, from above the rich soil, there is absolutely nothing to see. No outward evidence of life, no visible indicator of progress. There is only a profound silence and an unmoving stillness, suggesting inertness, perhaps even death. But underneath the surface, in the secret, dark chambers of the earth, where no human eye can possibly reach or observe, there is a magnificent, quiet eruption happening. There is a miraculous splitting of the outer shell, a tender reaching of roots downwards for nourishment, and a determined shoot growing, pushing upward against the resistance of the soil. There is a violent, yet unstoppable, upward momentum, a determined thrust towards light and life, a profound transformation that is utterly invisible to anyone merely looking at the surface. And if you, in your impatience or desire for immediate evidence, were to prematurely reach into the ground and pull that seed up before it had fully broken through the soil to meet the sun, you would not discover failure. You would not find a dead thing. What you would uncover is a process interrupted, a divine unfolding brought to a halt. You would find something profoundly alive, something dynamically moving, something exquisitely designed to become extraordinary, a towering tree, a vibrant flower, an abundant harvest, that simply needed more consecrated time in the sacred darkness, more hidden development, more unseen germination. You, in your yearning for tangible proof and visible progress, have been metaphorically pulling yourself up, examining every tendril of your soul for immediate evidence of growth, when God, your master gardener, has purposefully placed you in perhaps the most productive, most profoundly transformative season of underground development you have ever experienced in your spiritual journey. The profound truth that you cannot outwardly see it does not in any way mean it is not happening with relentless divine precision beneath the surface. The fact that you cannot physically or emotionally feel it does not diminish its reality or its power. It is time to consciously, deliberately stop interpreting the necessary, fertile darkness of this season as a sign of death, dormancy, or failure. Instead, embrace it as the very environment God consistently, miraculously, and effectively uses to initiate, cultivate, and bring forth the most profound, resilient, and extraordinary forms of life. And this profound understanding, this reframing of your present circumstances, leads us directly to something the enemy has been working particularly hard, with strategic intent, to keep hidden from you, to obscure from your spiritual vision in this very season. Because if you truly grasp and internalize this next vital truth, the pervasive grip of anxiety, the gnawing worry that has been a constant companion, will begin to loosen its hold entirely, melting away in the light of divine revelation. Understand this with the utmost certainty. God has already moved on your behalf, in ways both seen and unseen, in places you have not yet even arrived, in circumstances you have not yet encountered. He is not passively waiting for you to get ready, to feel perfectly prepared, or to reach some arbitrary level of spiritual maturity before he initiates his mighty work. No, he began his work before you even consciously knew you were chosen, before you understood the depths of your divine assignment. He moved silently, powerfully, in the hearts of people you have not yet met, orchestrating encounters, softening resistance, preparing allies. He opened vast corridors in the spirit, clearing pathways, removing obstacles that your natural feet have not yet walked through, preparing the ground for your arrival. He has been strategically rearranging atmospheres, shifting the very spiritual fabric around your destiny, softening resistance, and repositioning resources, all with meticulous precision, all for the exact divine moment when you step into the fullness of what he has already prepared and set in motion for you. This is the unwavering character of our God, the same God who, through Moses, told Joshua, his appointed leader, that every place the sole of his foot would tread, he had already given. Note the profound tense, had already given, past tense, done, settled, established. Before Joshua's feet ever touched the promised land, before he surveyed the territories, the victory was declared, the inheritance secured, long before the first battle was even fought. Which means, and I implore you, receive this truth deep into the fertile ground of your spirit, let it anchor your soul. You are not desperately chasing a breakthrough that might happen, a nebulous possibility hanging precariously in the balance. You are, instead, catching up to a breakthrough that has already been definitively established, a victory that has already been meticulously planned and secured in the unseen realms of heaven. You are not hoping with bated breath that God will someday move on your behalf. You are, with settled confidence, walking into what God already moved, already accomplished, already secured. The posture that dramatically shifts everything within you, the one that unlocks the divine current, is no longer one of striving, of desperate exertion, of trying to earn or force an outcome. It is, profoundly, a posture of advancing, not forcing, not begging, not laboring under the burden of effort, but advancing with the settled, unshakable confidence of someone who knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the territory, the provision, the very promise they are stepping into, has already been irrevocably surrendered to them by the decree of heaven itself. It is the peace of knowing the war is won, and you are simply walking the victory lap. But here is where the real, raw confrontation with your innermost beliefs begins, and I need you to stay fiercely honest, unflinchingly transparent with yourself for this deeply personal part of our journey together. There is something within you, a deeply ingrained habit, a deceptive pattern that you have, perhaps unconsciously, been calling faith. That is, in its spiritual essence, actually fear in disguise. There is a posture you have adopted, a way of being that looks outwardly like surrender, that sounds, with carefully chosen words, like profound trust, that even employs the sacred language of patience and waiting upon the Lord. But underneath it all, beneath the spiritual veneer, there lies a quiet, almost imperceptible refusal to fully, courageously step forward. This refusal stems from a hidden vulnerability, a deep-seated apprehension, because stepping forward, truly advancing into the unknown, means you might be wrong in your interpretation, your timing, your understanding. Stepping forward means you might look foolish in the eyes of others, or even in your own estimation, if the outcome doesn't align with your expectations. Stepping forward means that if this grand vision, this deeply held belief, this fervent prayer does not manifest precisely the way you have been believing, you will be forced to face something profoundly uncomfortable within yourself, something you are not yet ready to confront, disappointment, doubt, or the painful question of whether you truly heard God. So instead of embracing the courageous act of advancing, you have been waiting, endlessly waiting, for absolute certainty before you make your move, before you commit your whole being. But let us be unequivocally clear, certainty is not what God ever promised. Certainty, in its human definition, is not faith. Faith, by its very nature, is moving, acting, believing before the full evidence arrives, before the outcome is guaranteed. It is the audacious act of stepping onto the churning waters before you have any empirical proof that they will hold your weight. It is the courageous lifting of your foot, placing it firmly over the threshold of the Jordan River, even before the mighty waters begin to miraculously part. Recall the Israelites, poised at the treacherous edge of the Jordan River, a formidable barrier at flood stage, swollen and raging, an impossible crossing for an entire nation. And God, in his infinite wisdom, issued a clear, audacious command to the priests, the consecrated ones who bore the sacred Ark of the Covenant, the very symbol of God's manifest presence. He told them to step in first, not to wait safely on the bank for the water to part, to recede, and then to leisurely walk through the dry ground, mitigating all risk. No, the instruction was unequivocal: to step in, to get their feet wet, or to carry the tangible presence of God, the very Ark, into the midst of the roaring, impossible thing, into the very heart of what looked like an insurmountable obstacle. And the miraculous, undeniable truth, recorded in Joshua 3:15 and 16, is that the moment their feet, those human, vulnerable feet, touched the swirling, overflowing water, the river stopped flowing. The waters from upstream miraculously piled up, standing in a heap, and the waters flowing downstream were completely cut off the moment their feet touched. Not a second before, not when they had intellectually grasped the logistics, not when they had grown comfortable with the idea of stepping in, not when their fear had dissipated, but the precise, audacious moment they actually stepped, in faith, into the unknown. You, my beloved, have been standing, perhaps for far too long, at the very edge of your own Jordan River, surveying its impossible currents, calculating the risks, waiting for a dry path to appear. And God, in his boundless patience and unwavering purpose, has been waiting for your feet. He is not asking for perfect understanding, but for obedient, courageous movement. And yet, and this is where a nuanced, unexpected truth must profoundly land in your spirit, preventing both recklessness and stagnation. The divine call to step forward in faith is not, under any circumstances, a call to impulsivity or spiritual recklessness. Because embedded within God's perfect plan is a divine tension, a holy paradox, that most teachers, in their understandable zeal for faith, never fully address or adequately explain. God unequivocally calls you to step out in audacious faith, to launch into the deep, to leave the safety of the shore, yes. But he also, with equal emphasis and wisdom, calls you to cultivate a profound discernment, an acute spiritual sensitivity, to differentiate between stepping in genuine faith, guided by his Spirit, and impulsively running ahead of his divine cloud. Remember the Israelites in the vast, perilous wilderness. They were guided by a visible, tangible manifestation of God's presence, a majestic cloud by day, shielding them from the desert sun, and a pillar of fire by night, illuminating their path and warming their journey. And when that cloud moved, they moved, breaking camp, trusting its direction. But with equal discipline and trust, when the cloud stayed still, they stayed still, sometimes for days, weeks, or even years, understanding that God's timing was paramount. And those who, in their impatience or misguided enthusiasm, ran ahead of the cloud, those who sought to chart their own course, found themselves utterly without covering, without divine protection, without the manifest presence of God that made the arduous journey not just survivable, but purposeful. Faith, therefore, is not merely knowing when to decisively move forward, when to courageously take that first step into the impossible. It is equally, and perhaps even more profoundly, knowing when to be still, when to rest in divine patience, and allow the cloud, the full, tangible weight of His glory, His provision, His perfect timing, to catch up to what you have already, in obedience, stepped into. Some of you have been wrestling with profound frustration, even a quiet despair, because you stepped out, you took the risk, you made the move that you believed God prompted. And yet, it still has not fully manifested. And the haunting question, the one that echoes in the quiet chambers of your heart, is, what did I do wrong? Where did I misstep? But sometimes the profound and liberating answer is not that you moved too slow or that you lacked faith. Sometimes the answer is simply this: you moved in the right direction, at the right time, with the right heart. And God, in His sovereign wisdom, is precisely letting the cloud, the full, glorious weight of His provision, His divine alignment, His perfect timing, and His undeniable presence move into its rightful position behind what you have already stepped into. The manifestation is not late. It is not denied. The cloud is simply catching up to your courageous, faith-filled advance, orchestrating every detail to ensure the fullest, most glorious unfolding. But here is the profound, unexpected truth that may be the most crucial key to unlocking your destiny, the part that you absolutely did not expect. The thing that has been subtly, powerfully blocking you, acting as the deepest, most tenacious root beneath every single challenge, every struggle, every perceived limitation we have walked through together today. It is not primarily the enemy's overt interference, though he certainly plays his part. It is not fundamentally your past failures, though they may have left scars. It is not even unbelief in the traditional overt sense of doubting God's existence or His power. No, the thing that has been quietly, insidiously blocking you, forming an unseen barrier, is an unspoken, often unconscious agreement that you made at some point in your journey with limitation itself. Somewhere in your history, perhaps in a specific room, during a defining conversation, or most powerfully, in a season of pain so acute, so overwhelming that your spirit had to find a way, any way, to survive it. You made a quiet, desperate peace with a smaller version of your life. You did not give up entirely. Your spirit, inherently resilient, still prayed, still held onto flickers of hope, still believed in a God who could do miracles. But subtly, almost imperceptibly, you lowered the ceiling of your expectations. You whispered to your soul that maybe the fullness, the complete overflow, the unbridled manifestation of God's glory was not actually for you. You convinced yourself that perhaps the lavish abundance, the expansive calling, the audacious dreams were reserved for other people, for those seemingly more deserving, more spiritually gifted. You told yourself, with a resigned sigh, that perhaps your testimony would be one of quiet endurance rather than overflowing abundance, a narrative of survival rather than triumphant dominion. And in a cruel twist of spiritual self-deception, you called this lowering of expectations, this spiritual concession, contentment. But let me expose this truth with the light of heaven. It was not contentment. It was a profound wound, a spiritual scar, carefully dressed up in comforting spiritual language, making it palatable, even noble, but still a wound that restricted your divine flow. And God, in His profound love and liberating grace, is exposing that deeply hidden agreement today, not to shame you, not to condemn your past choices, but to utterly, irrevocably break it. Because the moment that invisible ceiling shatters, the moment you consciously, deliberately, and with fierce resolve Give heaven explicit permission to restore the full vision, the original, expansive call, the unedited, audacious dream he meticulously placed inside you before anyone, anywhere, ever dared to tell you who you were allowed or not allowed to be. That, my friend, is the precise divine moment, everything that has been quietly gathering, everything that has been converging in, the unseen, begins to powerfully land in your visible reality. That is the moment the elusive convergence becomes undeniable, vibrantly visible before your very eyes. That is the moment the scattered pieces stop being isolated fragments, bewildering and disjointed, and coalesce into the complete, breathtaking picture you have always, deep down, known was there, waiting to be revealed. So tonight, before you finally surrender to the embrace of sleep, before this sacred revelatory moment has a chance to fade back into the relentless noise and distractions of ordinary life, I urge you to take a deliberate, powerful action. Place your hand firmly on your chest, over your heart, and speak this with unwavering authority. Not as a hesitant wish, not as a fragile hope, but as a bold, unwavering declaration made by someone who has just had every limiting ceiling, every restrictive boundary divinely removed. I break every agreement I made with limitation. I renounce every diminished version of myself I quietly accepted in my seasons of pain. I withdraw my consent from every narrative the enemy constructed, using my worst moments as evidence. I declare that the work God began in me will be carried to its full and glorious completion. I am not falling behind. I am not disqualified. I am not scattered. I am being gathered at a speed that heaven determined long before I was born. The pieces are not lost. The doors are not permanently closed. The opportunities are not forfeited. They are being restored, realigned, and released in divine order. I step off the edge and into the water. I advance into territory God has already given. I release the smaller story. I receive the full one, and I declare that this season, this week, is the convergence point where everything I have been carrying begins to make complete and undeniable sense. I am seen, I am held, I am chosen, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Now do not let this moment evaporate into silence. If this message reached a place in you that you have not let anything touch in a long time, I want to know. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you are finally ready to stop calling a closed door and start calling a divine delay? And if you know someone who is standing at the edge of their Jordan River right now, wondering if they missed their moment, share this with them today, not tomorrow, today. Because some messages are not just for the people who find them. They are for the people who are one share away from the word that changes everything.